The day evil knocked at my door. Have you ever walked into your own home and felt the air turn cold, as if something unspeakable had just happened? Imagine finding your child, your heart, lying lifeless in the grass, water dripping from their hair, and the only explanation is a neighbor's vague shrug. Maybe she fell. That's the nightmare I lived. My name is Daniel Harper, a state prosecutor in Georgia, a man who's faced down murderers and mob bosses in courtrooms. But nothing prepared me for the evil lurking 2 houses down, hiding behind a clipboard and a fake smile. This is the story of how I fought back when a monster tried to drown my deaf daughter in a bucket in our own backyard and how I made sure justice was served. I'm Daniel Harper, 52, a father, a husband, and a prosecutor who spent 2 decades putting criminals behind bars. Most folks in our quiet suburb of Willow Creek, Georgia, know me as the guy with the old Chevy truck and a lawn that's never quite perfect. I like it that way. They don't need to know I've taken down gang leaders and corrupt CEOs. My wife, Ellen, is the soul of our homie, a 3rd-grade teacher who bakes cookies for new neighbors. Our daughter, Sophie, is 8, born profoundly deaf. She's our light, a fearless girl who dances barefoot in the grass and signs stories with her hands. Her smile could melt stone. We built our life around her, installing safety gates, soft turf, and flashing door sensors she could see instead of hear. Every night, I'd sign her bedtime stories, and she'd call me Daddy, with a tiny sound that broke me open. Willow Creek seemed like the perfect place to raise Sophie. Porches with rocking chairs, kids on bikes, 4th of July barbecues, the kind of neighborhood you'd see in a postcard. We moved here 4 years ago, thinking it would embrace Sophie's differences. For a while it did. Neighbors waved. Kids played tag in the cul-de-sac. Then the HOA elected a new president, Margaret Steele, and everything changed. Margaret moved in a year ago, a mid-50s widow with platinum hair and a walk like she owned the street. She carried a clipboard like a scepter and wore blazers even to walk her yappy terrier. She ran for HOA president on a platform of raising standards and protecting property values. Translation: she wanted control. Somehow she won. I should have paid attention, but I was too busy with work, thinking it was just neighborhood nonsense. I was wrong. The trouble started small. Notes on mailboxes about untrimmed bushes. Fines for chalk drawings on sidewalks. A warning about a non-compliant doormat. Ellen laughed it off. Who cares about a doormat? But the notes kept coming. Our house got 3 citations in a month. One for Sophie's wind chimes, another for her bike left by the curb, and the 3rd for a hand-painted sign she'd made that read, "Joy lives here." Margaret called it unsightly. I tried calling her, offering to talk. She brushed me off, insisting everything go through proper HOA channels. Her emails ended with "best regards," but there was no warmth in them. Sophie noticed it first. Whenever Margaret passed her, her lips would tighten, her eyes lingering on Sophie's hearing aids. Once, Sophie accidentally bumped Margaret's dog while chasing a butterfly. Margaret snapped. She needs boundaries. I stepped in, explaining Sophie couldn't hear the dog. Margaret's reply chilled me. That's why she's a risk. To everyone. From then on, Sophie couldn't play outside without Margaret hovering, sometimes taking photos for documentation. I began to suspect it wasn't just bias, it was personal. Sophie's existence threatened her perfect little world. It wasn't just us. The Millers got fined for their porch swing. The Chins were warned for leaving trash cans out too long. But Sophie got the worst of each, a deaf child who dared to be happy. Margaret never yelled or cursed. That's what made her dangerous. She hid her cruelty behind rules and icy politeness. It was a Thursday, warm and golden, the kind of day that feels safe. Ellen and I had a dentist appointment, so we left Sophie with Lily Carter, a 19-year-old neighbor who'd known her for years. Lily knew sign language, Sophie's favorite games, and how to read her nervous hand flutters. At 3:10 p.m., Lily texted, "Sophie's drawing with chalk in the backyard. I'll watch from the kitchen." I told her to lock the side gate, a habit we never skipped. We pulled into the driveway at 4:20, and my stomach dropped. No chalk drawings. No Sophie waving. No giggles. I called her name, nothing. Ellen's face went pale. We ran to the backyard. There, by the fence, was Sophie, crumpled in the grass, her hair soaked, clothes clinging to her. A large plastic bucket lay tipped beside her, water pooling in the dirt. Her hearing aids were gone. I dropped to my knees, lifting her cold, limp body. Her lips were blue, but her eyes fluttered. She was alive barely. Ellen called 911 while I held Sophie, her silent tears soaking my shirt. The ambulance ride was a blur. EMT said she'd inhaled water, but her lungs were clear. At the hospital, she sat up, dazed but breathing. They kept her overnight. Lily was hysterical, swearing she'd only stepped away for 3 minutes. The gate, she said, was locked when she checked. Now it hung open. That night, while Ellen stayed with Sophie, I walked our backyard in the dark. The bucket wasn't our sold, discolored, smelling of bleach. The side gate's latch was tampered with, not broken. Then I checked our Ring camera. It had gone offline at 3:42 p.m., 2 minutes after Lily's text. Someone had unplugged it. This wasn't an accident. Someone had planned it. The next morning, I visited Mr. Henry Walsh, our 78-year-old neighbor, a Vietnam vet who spent his days on his porch with a crossword. "Henry," I asked, "see anything yesterday?" He nodded. "That steel woman was by your fence around 3:40. Wearing gloves, carrying a bag. Didn't wave. Looked sneaky." My blood ran cold. I called Detective Tom Bradley, a law school friend. He met me at the precinct, and I laid it out. The bucket, the camera, Henry's story. He promised a forensic team and pulled footage from nearby cameras. Then I found an HOA letter in our mailbox, fining us $750 for an environmental hazard, the bucket. Margaret's name was on it. An HOA email followed, urging residents to supervise children to avoid liability. It was a slap in the face, a cover-up disguised as concern. My fear turned to rage. Margaret thought she could hide behind her rules. She didn't know who I was. At 6 a.m., I put on my courtroom suit, grabbed my state attorney badge, and met Tom at the station. He had news. A neighbor's camera showed Margaret near our fence at 3:41 p.m., carrying a bag, returning empty-handed 10 minutes later. In her trash, they found rubber gloves and one of Sophie's hearing aids, broken, crusted with bleach and mud. Neighbors started talking. Henry gave a sworn statement. The Millers said Margaret had threatened them over their grandson's drone. The Chins revealed a letter calling their wheelchair ramp an eyesore. I drafted a search warrant myself, approved by noon. By 2 p.m., officers were at Margaret's door. She opened it, smug as ever. "What's this about?" she demanded. I stepped forward, badge in hand. "I'm a state attorney, Margaret. You're under investigation for attempting to harm my daughter." Her face went white. In questioning, she claimed she was checking a noise complaint and denied touching Sophie. But the evidence was damning. Gloves with bleach, the hearing aid, blurry but clear footage. We filed 3 charges: felony child endangerment, evidence tampering, and trespassing. Margaret was arrested that Friday, her silk robe no shield against the law. At her arraignment, I faced her in court. Neighbors packed the gallery, silent but supportive. I addressed the judge. This wasn't negligence. It was malice against a vulnerable child. Bail was granted, but with a restraining order and ankle monitor. Henry met me outside. "Lived here 40 years, he said. "She picked the wrong family." The trial was set for May. Willow Creek began to heal. The Chins lit up their ramp. The Millers hung a red swing. A sign appeared on the HOA board. "This is a home, not a corporation." Margaret was ousted as HOA president, replaced by Clara Evans, a retired nurse who prioritized kindness. Sophie struggled. Trauma and deaf kids shows quietly. We enrolled her in play therapy with a signing specialist. One evening, she drew flowers in the backyard, one shaped like a badge. "What's this?" I signed. "Safe," she signed back, smiling. It broke me. In court, my team was relentless. Margaret's defense concern for neighborhood safety crumbled. She stumbled over the gloves, the bleach, the footage. Neighbors' testimonies painted her as a bully targeting anyone different. The jury took 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Margaret got 3 years, parole after 18 months, and a permanent restraining order. As she was led away, I felt not vengeance, but relief. Willow Creek threw a neighbor's day barbecue, not to gloat, but to rebuild. Sophie, in new purple hearing aids, held up a sign. "I'm not broken. I'm brave." The crowd cheered. Her silent voice roared. A year later, Sophie's thriving. She's in dance class, teaching friends to sign, and planted sunflowers where it happened her brave garden. Margaret's house sold cheap. Clara's HOA added anti-discrimination rules and a kindness week at Sophie's suggestion. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it wears lipstick and quotes bylaws. But justice isn't a moment, it's healing, laughter, and neighbors who finally see each other. One night, Sophie signed, "You saved me." I signed back, "You saved yourself." I just made sure the world saw it. What would you do if evil knocked at your door? Have you faced a bully hiding behind rules, or seen injustice silenced by fear? Share your story in the comments. Tell us where you stand on fighting violence and unfairness. Your voice matters. Let's make sure no one faces this alone.